FLM, wide open thinking, world-class work, and far-reaching results. Now with locations in Minneapolis, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. A strategic marketing and communications company dedicated to serving clients who specialize in the business of agriculture and the life of rural communities.
Thank you for joining us for our latest Meet the Farmhands video. Joined today by Krysta Harden, the Vice President of Public Policy with DuPont. Krysta, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Spencer.
For starters, can you give us an idea of the timeline of your career, the places you've been throughout your time in Washington, as far back as you'd like to go, all the way up until the present?
Well, I don't know how much time we have.
We got time. We got time.
All right. I think that what I always start, how I introduce myself usually, is the daughter of farmers, because I think my career and really every aspect of it really starts there, and that's probably the most meaningful part. Is growing part of farm in Southwest Georgia. My parents are still there, and I think my love of the land and of agriculture, the appreciation for what farmers and ranchers have to go through, the importance of good public policy really started there with the hard work from my parents. I went to the University of Georgia and then came to Washington right out of college and worked on Capitol Hill. For a member of Congress, he represented my home area in Georgia, and he was on the Ag Committee. And somehow or another, I kind of migrated back to my roots pretty quickly. Started working on agriculture issues, started working on farm bills. This was back in the 80s, so a long time ago. A lot has changed since then, but a lot's still the same when you think about agriculture and agriculture policy. And from there, when I left the Hill, I went to work for Gordley Associates. John Gordley is still a very dear friend, a good mentor for me, who represented the American Soybean Association and the canola growers and sunflowers and a number of other ag organizations, and I really got to expand my understanding of ag beyond just southern commodities. I felt very comfortable talking about peanuts and tobacco and cotton and things that I had grown up with, but working for Gordley helped me see a whole different perspective. I learned a lot about the Midwest and the Great Plains and some of the issues they were facing. I did find out that farmers are farmers pretty much, but they grow different crops and have some different challenges, but great experience there, and it really helped me understand a lot about agriculture, and I think prepared me again for this job. From there, I went to be the CEO of the National Association of Conservation Districts. Really gave me a chance to focus on conservation, sustainability, issues that just are so important to me. Love of the land first. I learned that from my mama and my daddy and people all in my family, and to be able to focus with other leaders around the country in every state, just about every county has a conservation district. So I really got to dig deep, literally, into the soil and the water and looking at air. So I loved my time at NACD, and then was asked to join the Obama administration in 2009. And loved those 7 years really in public service, representing American agriculture around the world in a couple of different roles there. So I've had a good ride. It's been fun.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you mentioned your time at University of Georgia, when you were there, you were a journalism student.
I was.
Yes.
Very interesting. It was tough times in agriculture for one thing. The early 80s, my parents were just hanging on to the farm, and the message was go do anything but ag. It was really a tough time. And so I'd always loved journalism. I loved the thought of free press, the thought of communication, the ability to tell a story, and really enjoyed my time in the J School. And I was a spokesperson, a press secretary for a member of Congress when I was chief of staff, but never really spent much time in that world. It does kind of help to know what's going on behind the other side of the camera. Mm-hmm. And I still love to write, I still love to communicate. It's good training, but very different from where I ended up today. Mm-hmm.
So what would you say really steered you back toward working in agriculture? Is it because that's where the open doors were, or because that's where your passion was, or some kind of combination of the two?
I wish it was all of those. They sound so good. But the true story is, the member of Congress I was working for was on the Ag Committee and came in and said, we're having a farm bill and I really need someone to work on ag policy. And you grew up on a farm, so I think it should be you. And I'm like, well, I don't know that I know that much. I don't know if I can be of help. I was just really a young kid, pretty much right out of college, just learning in Washington and learning about how our laws are made, the real way they're made, not just in the books in the classroom. And he said, I bet you know more than you think you do. And I kind of realized it was not a question. And it was like, I need you to do this, you're the one. And I never looked back. I was right back on that dirt road immediately and recognized so much how it mattered to me, how important it was, and how I could connect with home without being on the farm. And I could make a difference for my family and other families, farm families around the country. And I loved it. It did not take very long to realize my roots were very, very deep, and they were important to me, and I wanted to make a difference in agriculture.
That comment you made about how laws are really made, I'm wondering how you've seen government change since you first took your first job on the Hill all the way up until leaving the Obama administration earlier this year. How have you seen the role, the way government works? How have you observed governmental changes throughout your career in Washington?
Well, some are very practical. Just now with smartphones and cell phones, and so much is done electronically. When I was on the Hill, meetings and getting to know people was extremely important. We would have constant flow of folks from our district, from our state, from around the country, really, talking about agriculture. When you did a farm bill, people stood out in the hallways and wanted to grab you when you ran out to go to the restroom or take a snack break. It really, relationships mattered. It was also, at least in my hindsight, very bipartisan across all areas. I think it still is in agriculture pretty much, but I don't remember ever thinking about a party someone was in. We all worked together. A lot of regional differences between the South and the Midwest in those days. We had a lot more programs that were designed for specific crops. So in that sense, in agriculture, it was very different. But I think about there were nuances that were different, and been new challenges that you see, different problems for farmers that maybe they didn't have then. But by and large, we're still a lot the same. And the process works better sometimes than others, but I think all in all, I still believe in our systems. I still believe that a lot of good comes out of what happens in this town.
Mm-hmm. Along that same line of thinking, when you were working in the House, you were working on a subcommittee that involved peanuts and tobacco.
Yes. That
subcommittee no longer exists. The political influence of peanuts and tobacco have obviously changed very greatly. How have you seen the role and the conversation of agriculture and agriculture policy change during your career?
Well, I think you're exactly right. It used to be much more specialized. You had a number of subcommittees on the House Ag Committee when I was there, very focused. We all had, some type of program, either quota program for tobacco or supply management program for peanuts, very much more intense government involvement in those programs. And that did evolve over time after I left, and it did change to more where we are today. So that sense, it is very different. And so you also see, farmers maybe growing a lot more different things. I see my area, blueberries are now one of the crops. A lot of peanuts still. There's a lot of cotton, less tobacco in my home area. But you are starting to see farmers look at the markets. Pecan industry, with the markets opening up in China, has really become quite a cash crop. Where I'm from, you didn't see that a few decades ago. So whether it's driven by markets and the pull of that and the demand, or by policies that have changed, I don't really know, but you have seen kind of an evolution of what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Is there a better or worse comparison in terms of policies of then and now, or do you think it's more of just a difference?
I think it's just more of a difference. I think it's a reaction to what's happening in the global market now. Probably, I do think that farmers are very creative. They have more information. Part of that is their smartphone. Part of it is having a computer in every home, if not in their truck, in their handheld, thinking about weather patterns, planning ahead more, thinking about how do you farm differently than maybe your father and grandfather did. I think you're definitely seeing farmers come out of college very excited about trying something different. I think that's one of the great things about what's happening in agriculture, is having these young people come out of school, men and women, very much more diverse maybe profile than we've had in the past, thinking about how do we make this great industry even greater.
Mm-hmm. You first joined the Obama administration and USDA in 2009. Kind of bounced around a little bit in USDA, had a couple different jobs there. Was your intention to stay in government in the Obama administration and in USDA for as long as you did?
Well, that's a good story. I really thought, I was Assistant Secretary for Congressional Relations. I went and wanted to help a new administration get started. I was very excited to serve and very pleased to serve, and I loved working with Congress and thought it was a great fit for me. At the end of the 2 years, I told the secretary I knew he needed fresh legs and fresh eyes, and there were, a whole lot of people around the country that could come help serve the administration, and was going to start looking for a new position. And he said, well, hold off a little bit because I may have something else in mind for you within our team. And I said, okay, not really knowing what that meant. A short time later, it was revealed that Karen Ross, who was our chief of staff, was going to be the Commissioner of Agriculture in California. And the secretary said, I'm really interested in you thinking about coming over to be chief of staff. He said, I've got to interview other people, but I want you on the list. I really want you to take this seriously. That was a job I never even imagined I would have. It was just amazing to learn about the department, how it works, the interface with the White House and other agencies. Just a great opportunity. There was no way I was saying no. I was just thrilled to do that. And I did that for 2.5 years. Hardest job I probably ever have, frankly. Very demanding, 24/7, but very exciting and a lot of fun too.
Mm-hmm. And then from chief of staff, you moved over to deputy.
Now that was fun.
Yeah?
That was really fun. It was. I loved being deputy. It was a different kind of job than the others I had had. Being chief of staff, you're a staff. I mean, that is what it is. And you are chief of staff, at least for me, to a very dynamic, active, wonderful leader in Tom Vilsack, a hard man to keep up with, very hard driving for himself and the team around him. Deputy, you're a principal. So you have your own staff, which was fun, but also I had more opportunity to be out around the country, meeting with farmers and ranchers, spending time with our veterans who want to go into agriculture, with young women, talking about careers in STEM, looking at the gambit of the reach and breadth and touch of the Department of Agriculture, really around the globe. So being that advocate, sometimes almost a diplomat in talking about what we do in agriculture in this country and how it does touch everyone. But it's also the Forest Service, it's nutrition issues. It's more than just the narrow focus on agriculture and farming that I had known in the past. So I really got to learn. I really got to grow. I stretched myself. I had to learn a lot more acronyms, a lot more programs, a lot more stakeholders. It was fabulous to be able to do that and represent USDA.
Mm-hmm. Looking back, what would you say is the defining day of your time at the Department of Agriculture?
The defining day?
The defining day.
Oh, goodness. I don't know if there's just one, but one that comes to mind is when we were almost wrapped up with the implementation of the Farm Bill. When we were able to present kind of the last big tranche of decisions to the Secretary. Kind of relief. A lot of pride that we had worked very hard as a team to implement a farm bill that had taken a long time to get passed. And so we were behind, and farmers and ranchers were in need, and they needed certainty, and they needed to know what was coming out of the government. So to be able to do that was very, very exciting.
When you were an ag staffer on Capitol Hill, did you ever imagine that this was going to be your job to implement one of these things at one point in your life?
Never. I tell you, I might have done it differently if I had known what really goes into it. And the really, when you don't make a decision on the Hill and you leave it to a department, really just the depth of what is required, the time, the energy, the effort from a whole host of very dedicated, mainly career staff, frankly, who are experts in their fields, and how do you manage that and lead that. I really was pretty naive, frankly. Even though I'd done a lot of farm bills and worked on a lot of farm bills, I didn't think about what was required to implement a farm bill. So it was really one of the greatest experiences of my time at the department, one that I really learned and made me very proud of what goes into it and the difference that good policy can make for farmers and ranchers.
Mm-hmm. I want to shift gears and talk a little about you personally here for a little while.
Okay.
One of the first things that you mentioned on the first question that I asked is that you're a daughter of farmers. Mm-hmm. I heard a lot of remarks that you gave when you were deputy, and that always came up in your remarks, it seemed like. How, being a child of farmers and being someone that is familiar with the ag industry in the various capacities that you've been, how has that upbringing, that rural, that ag upbringing, shaped kind of the decisions that you make and shaped the career path that you've chosen kind of to this point?
It's the core. It is the the beginning and the end for me. I'm sorry, this is always where I have to collect myself. Nothing is more important in who I am and what has shaped me than the farm in South Georgia and the people that are there. And it's not just my parents, it's my extended family. It's the aunts and the uncles and the cousins who I've seen work so hard and care so much and give back, who taught me about discipline and hard work and commitment, about love of country, love of land, love of giving, and the role that we play as farmers. I remember some of my great uncles talking about World War II and how critical it was at that time to grow food for our country and how much pride they had and how emotional they would get. This is who shaped me. And when I call home, I talk to a farmer. I talk to somebody trying to make a living, who these programs and decisions that we make in this town and in other places, state capitals and global capitals, matter. It's not in the abstract for me. It is home. It is mom and daddy. It is just the root of who I am, and which makes me excited to work in agriculture. It makes me very proud. So I always introduce myself as a daughter of farmers, and I have been teased about that sometimes, but it first identifies who I am and why I'm here.
Mm-hmm. And when you're not on the clock, so to speak, either at DuPont or both in your time in USDA as well, when you're not on the clock, I understand you really enjoy traveling.
I do.
You really like going to seeing different places in the world. What's the favorite vacation you've ever taken?
Well, my first love is South Africa. I went there almost 20 years ago. I was just so excited. I had read about it and studied about it, even in college, about learning about apartheid, and it was something about it that just intrigued me. And the first time I went, there was just this connection. It touched my soul. Now, my daddy laughs when I say that. He didn't really understand what I mean. But for me, it was just a connection. And I love the people. I love the land. I just love it. And I go back every chance I get. I love all of sub-Saharan Africa. Really anywhere on the continent. I have enjoyed going and learning. I love to travel and to meet people. I try to get on farms when I go. My husband and I actually had a vacation this year for the first time in a long time.
Okay.
And we went to Iceland and Norway, two very different places. And in Norway, we spent a night on a farm with this lovely family who has turned their, I think, 16th century stone barn into a little inn. And we went to their 12th century church where they were married. And I was out in the field with this farmer talking to him about his problems and his needs and trade and new pests that he has. That's what I do, and people laugh at me about that. The other thing I enjoy doing is going meeting with women farmers all over the world. They are working hard, and they are making a difference. And a lot of them are just feeding their own family with a little bit extra to help their community. Many are doing it at large scale. So those are things that I really do enjoy doing when I do have free time.
Right. You mentioned Africa or Southern Africa being your first love. What's your activity of choice when you're down there? Fishing, safaris, all of the above?
I love to do photography, safaris. I love to take pictures. That's something I always have a couple of cameras in my hand when I travel. I really do enjoy that. I love going to the villages and talking to people, meeting the kids who are so precious. I love, really all of it. I really do enjoy just getting out on the land, relaxing. Your cell phone often doesn't work. That's another good thing. You can really just disappear for a few days. So it's just a nice getaway. Mm-hmm.
And also understand that you and I share kind of a common addiction. We're both Mountain Dew addicts.
Oh yeah, I love Mountain Dew. Yeah. How about that? I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. But I've heard that in earlier days in your career, you would maybe encourage the catering staff to make sure there was Mountain Dew on hand. Can you confirm this for me?
Well, I have to say I'm guilty. I did. We would have, and that's really tough being a girl from Georgia. To say that you like this Mountain Dew. So I have to be very careful here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a touchy subject.
It can be.
All right, and I'll wrap up with this one, and it's the same question I wrap up all of these interviews with. If you were to go back in time and give Krysta Harden walking onto Capitol Hill for her first day on the job any piece of advice,
have fun.
What would that be? Have fun?
Have fun. It goes by so fast. Just enjoy, because it's so great, and you fret and you worry over little things and maybe minor mistakes and wish you could have, should have done something different. in the large scheme of things, it usually doesn't matter. Enjoy. I've had a great time. And I look back and I think about some of the little things that I might have spent too much time fretting over or worrying about, instead of just enjoying every minute of it, because it is just fabulous.
Krysta, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Spencer.